Welcome to Road to Billions podcast, the mentality of an entrepreneur. With your host, Moise Bertrand.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It is your host, Moise Bertrand, the Road to Billions podcast. It's been an amazing journey, you guys. I just checked my Apple Podcast, and I was like, you know what? Let me see my analytics, right? Because I have a distributor that takes care of my ads and everything, and then I have Apple Podcast that shows me a little bit of the analytics, and it lets me directly put my podcast on Apple. But you could find my podcast on YouTube and Spotify and all that good stuff. But anyways, I was checking out my followers count, right? My subscribers, and it's amazing. You know, it's amazing to have people who follow me, who believe in just, you know, what I say. And it doesn't necessarily have to be believing what I say. It's more so having a listening ear, right? And I want to say I'm grateful for you guys, you know, those who devoted your life to seeing every time I post an episode, you know, it pops up on your notification bar. So I definitely want to say shout out to you guys and everybody who's continuing this, subscribing. For new subscribers, for those who are thinking about subscribing, man, you know, give it a shot. You know, I talk about some real shit, and I feel like what I talk about needs to be heard. You give me whatever or however you get to listen to it. Just try to listen to it some part of your day and some part of your life. You know, you will learn something. I definitely could say that. Now, not to hold too much of your time, but BRRR, right? What makes a house a BRRR gold mine? Now, for you guys who don't know, I specialize in BRRR, you know, investing, meaning I take houses that are in horrible condition and I make them into beautiful, immaculate family homes. You know what I'm saying? A house that you'll probably drive by on a daily and be like, man, that shit's in horrible condition. I love them houses. I love that word, horrible condition, because I'm able to show and showcase what I know and also bring something that everybody would deem a failure and bring it back to life, right? And in this case, I went ahead into specializing in BRRR because it has many benefits, right? You get your investment back through the refinance. You hold on to the property still. You don't have to sell it. And most importantly, cash flow and appreciation. So, you know, all these factors play a part in the perfect BRRR deal, because if you play your numbers right and you do everything right, you will have a gold mine. And I was able to create a portfolio doing just this. So I just want you guys to take notes and everything. So the first option, or your first target, or I would say, I don't know, marker for a bad or quote unquote ugly house would just be the exterior conditions. You know, how's the grass? Does it has a tree going through the roof? How's the roof looking? Does it look like it's just, you know, pretty much thrown away, abandoned? So all of these things are things you have to really think about when you're making this decision of buying this house and also evaluating this house, because many people will do an unjust routine and just be like, oh, that's a nice house. That's a BRRR house right there, because they see the exterior, right? But they don't really know what constitutes the inside, meaning how bad is the inside. So your first step automatically in noticing in this being a good deal potentially is the outside condition. When you notice the outside condition, you're going to now go ahead and get, you know, your eggs rolling, right? You may want to just schedule a viewing real quick with a realtor that's in the area, or you just want to go ahead and look on Zillow and any other platforms that may have images and pictures of this house. And more than likely, sometimes if it's not a for sale sign outside, it's not being for sale. But, you know, even if it is a for sale sign outside, sometimes that won't be online. So you just want to see if their pictures are available, either previous pictures, old pictures, new pictures, whatever. Just try to collect as much information as possible. Your next thing is, like I mentioned, the realtor, right? So you want to get the inside going. You want to see how the inside feels, smell, you know, how cold it is, how hot it is, you know, the humidity, you know, what it sound like on the inside. You know, you want to listen for all these things. You want to use all your 6 senses, right? And I say 6 because your intuition is your last one, right? That's the invisible one. That's your third eye. That's the one when you walk in the house and you can look at it and be like, you know what? This could be done into something, right? This could really be done into something. But it's only a problem if you get inside and you don't know where to start. That's a problem. But this is why you listen to this episode and this podcast, because I'm just giving you the real rundown about how to really look through the property. So you're on the inside and you want to look, like I said, you want to feel for everything. You want to see how you feel. You want to smell it inside. You want to pretty much detect things. Now you just want to use your footing, meaning you're stepping. You want to see how the floorboards are holding up. Is the floor sagging? Are certain parts of the floor, does it have a creaking sound? All these things are now your evaluation of the foundation and, of course, the subflooring. You want to take your time, because you may not come back to this property again, or, you may come back a second time, but the first time is where you want to collect all your information, right? So you want to really get your feel for this property. Like I said, you want to walk around, you want to feel it, you want to hear, you want to freaking think about it, right? Now you make your way over to the bedrooms. Now I always like to do a little 360 swirl in the middle, like Will Smith did in Fresh Kid Off Bel-Air, just because I want to really feel each bedroom, right? I want to hear it, and I'm closing my eyes while I'm talking to you guys because I really want you guys to understand the walkthrough of this, right? You want to get in that room and you want to stand in the middle where the ceiling fan will be at, in the middle center line, and you want to do yourself a 360, right? You just want to close your eyes for a little bit, and you just want to try to hear and feel and just be with the room, be with the house. And I know it sounds like some Avatar shit, but this is the anatomy of the home, right? This is something you're going to spend thousands of dollars in. I hope you would not just be going in here bullshitting. You know what I'm saying? This is more expensive than a car, a woman giving labor. I'm not saying that women giving labor is not comparison to this. No, I'm saying the price of the hospital bill. Just a lot of things. Is this a really big investment, And just like I tell everybody, you want to think twice about how do you feel, With all due respect, the realtor is not the investor. They do not know what to do in most of these conditions and most of these times. They're just here to sell a deal, get a quick commission, move on to the next investor. Whether you do good or bad on your deal, it's not for them. It's for you just to see what do you want to buy into. So when you get in this room, man, you want to really check all the closets. You want to do that 360 spin. You want to hear for any noises. You want to listen for any creaks. You want to listen if any rodents walking around in the attic or anything like that. You want to hear if any leaks in the walls, or like I said, the subfloor sagging, or even some of the doors when you open the doors in the closets, the hinges. You want to hear these things. Okay, cool. You want to check the inches below the floorboards and the door. Is it a gap of spacing? You want to check the baseboards. You want to see if it's gaps of spacing. You want to see if you can see the outside. You want to see if you want to see the outside brightness, and if you can see the outside through the inside of the house and not through the windows. I'm talking about if you get on your knees on all fours and you look down at the baseboards, to the baseboards, can you see the outside of the house? That could be another issue. Like I said, subfloor, foundation, just a lot of things that are missing. So understandably that this is going to be one of the issues you run into. Okay, let's make your way to the other room. The other room is something that's going to be, like I said, another example of the first room you just went into, right? You want to go in there, close your eyes, do a 360 and feel, hear, listen for sounds, open the closet doors, get on your knees, see if the baseboards, if you can look on the outside, touch the walls. I didn't say this in the first one, but touch the walls. More than likely, if I was you, if you moving into a new home or you're rebuilding a new home, I like to just redo the drywall, pretty much because some of the old paint from the previous owner creates those runny lines, creates those botches. How sometimes the drywall isn't really fully sanded down and they have time to cure. It creates botches in the walls, right? And what I mean by botches is if you ever run your hand down a wall, you feel like it's lumpy. That's botches. That's drywall that didn't really get a chance to settle and cure, or wasn't sanded down properly and spread evenly. And on top of that, it could be a leak. If it's soft and everything, that could be a potential leak behind that wall that now you have to deal with. You also could smell a leak, right? It smells like wood that's just settled and everything, and it smells wet, if that makes sense. Like, it's like a wet smell. If you ever been in the forest, that's what it pretty much smells like. It smells literally like that inside of a house that has leaks inside the walls. And then, of course, if it's humidity and air coming in and out, that could be another thing. So let's just say the third room, you do the same thing, right? You want to touch the walls. You want to jump up and down. You want to, get your footing right. You want to open the doors. You want to even look at the light switches, right? More than likely in these houses, a few things can happen. They could tell you utilities are not turned on, so that could be a bigger issue, but we're going to get there. And, sometimes the utilities are not turned on just because it's just not turned on. But usually half the time it's not turned on because it may be a bigger issue. But you might be able to, mingle your way through that if you could get some information from the seller before you even make a purchase, or even get those lights turned on. You know what I'm saying? Before you make that purchase. Now, another thing as well, when you move into the bathroom, you guys, the bathroom is kind of tricky because you don't know the condition of the plumbing. You would never know unless, like I said, the utilities are turned on, electric and water, right? If these things aren't turned on, you're really just gambling. You're playing Russian roulette. And this is why it's very imperative, if you can, ask your realtor to tell the seller, listen, I love the home, but I want to know transparency. Can you turn on the utilities? Oh, we're not turning it on. Okay, well, what I was offering now is about to drop in the price. If you don't turn it on, it just means that you're hiding something, right? You're hiding that it needs a whole plumbing job redone. It needs a whole electrical panel and rewiring in all the rooms. It needs everything that I never thought of getting done. And when you think about these things, you guys, you're making a conscious decision of spending 6 figures, right? So don't be afraid to be a little bit hardcore and stern, because this is an investment you're making. Now, when you look at the bathroom, like I said, check if it's running water. If it's not running water, how it sounds. If it turns on and it jumps, like it sounds like the pipe just been then shot. If it jumps, like it make a big boom thud sound, bad. Get that checked out. If I was you, I'll just bring a plumber with me. Try to bring them the second day, so the realtor isn't really trying to conscrew them or sway your conversation, because they'll do that later. They'll try to talk to you guys, and then now you're missing valuable stuff. Now, making your way to the roof. The roof, if you're going to need to get it done or not, that's kind of a no-brainer. Just get it done, HVAC, I like to just change all HVAC units, because if it's been there for a while, more than likely it may cause a problem 2, 3 years, 4 years down the line. And I just like to have that peace of mind saying, if I'm going to fix this house wholeheartedly, I'm going to fix it up. I'm going to redo everything. And then, like I said, from the outside, you just know how you're going to clean up the curb appeal. How is the house going to look? When you take care of it, are you going to make a driveway? Are you going to repave the driveway? Are you going to cut some trees down, open up the face of the property? Are you going to, put some porches? Different things you could think about. You start thinking about these things, right? But like I said, you always want to look at the 4 main things of the house: electrical, plumbing, roofing, and HVAC. When you have these 4 things secured and you have these 4 things in the peace of mind, knowing that the condition of them, knowing how they run, how they operate, knowing, what needs to get changed out, what could stay, then you could kind of make a more tangible assessment of a number you could put on this property as an offering and how much you're going to need a rehab. But until then, you kind of just going off the whim of thinking and gambling. And I don't want you guys to know that. I don't want you guys to go through that. I want you guys to, first off, ask the seller to turn on utilities. And second of all, bring your own set of contractors, plumbers, electricians, whatever, and then have them take an assessment of the home and then give you a real thorough inspection of what needs to change, what needs to not get changed if you're selling it, if you're keeping it as a property, rental property, because some things don't have to get changed out, right? If you're selling it, obviously you got to make sure everything's new upgrades. But if you could salvage some things, then by all means, salvage them and then, hold on to it as soon as possible. But like I said, man, it's always good just to have a peace of mind knowing what you're investing in, knowing what properties are good, to even buy in. Like I said, the minute you walk in the house and it looks fucked up, drywall all's fucked up, paint's all over the place, old materials, furniture, it just looks like a shit show, that's a beautiful home. Old clothes, everything being abandoned, that's a beautiful home. And a lot of people, they don't understand that it takes a lot of courage, and it takes a lot of due diligence to make these right decisions. And that's why I said you always want to make sure you have all your eggs lined up, your ARVs, your comparables, a good realtor, a lender, a GC, handyman, electricians, and people who are willing to work on your team for the sake of, making you successful. The more deals you get done, the more work they get. You know what I'm saying? So everybody works together and coincides together. So like I mentioned to you guys before, it's a process, but it's a process that is very simple after you treat it with respect and also do it many times. But if you just do a real estate deal once every 3 years, of course you're not gonna know shit. But if you do a real estate deal every month, every 2-3 months, you flipping the house, refinance a house, doing the deal here, wholesaling, boom, boom, boom. You on the ground, you learning, you doing this and that. Eventually, you're gonna be getting a hang of all this, and you're gonna look back and be like, man, I'm glad I listened to Moist. I'm glad I did what he told me to do. Research, read, be on the floor, get questions answered, talk to people, really be in the field, take that chance, take that risk. Because if I didn't, I'll be stuck working my job, and I might not be pursuing what I really want to pursue, and that's just real estate, because I'm listening to this podcast. So if you listen to this podcast, I want to say the first things first is you're doing an amazing job, right? Whether you are unemployed, employed, have a lot going on for yourself, don't have a lot going on for yourself, know at the end of the day, you're always working towards a goal. And that goal is going to get accomplished, whether or not you believe it, whether or not you want it to get accomplished. As long as you're doing consistency work and you're not really worried about the results, all that's going to come. Opportunities, resources, investors, business partners, deals, they're going to come. People are going to teach you along the way. You're going to get screwed over a few times. You might be the person, unfortunately, doing the screwing. I'm not saying that in a malicious way. I'm just saying it in a way where you may have to just be the person to enforce boundaries and, how somebody did you. I'm not necessarily saying you're doing it to somebody else, but being affirmative a little bit, being a little stern and confident in what you're saying and what you believe in, and understanding that this is a business that only few could thrive in. Not everybody could be successful in real estate. And I'm not going to sit here and lie to you guys. It's a very diligent game. It's a very cutthroat industry. But if you know the right people, if you know the right terminology, if you know what to look for, if you do your work, if you listen to this episode and you listen to other episodes and you learn and you get on the floor, man, by the time you're going to be able to do a BRRRR deal next year, flip your first house, and may take you a few months because you're learning. But after that, man, you're hitting the floor running. So just make sure you get your credit right. If you haven't listened already, listen to my other episodes, rate, review, subscribe, tell others, man, because like I said, this podcast is not for me. It's for you guys. I just like listening to myself, talk a little bit, just put on a little show every once in a while. But other than that, man, I appreciate you guys for listening, tuning in on the podcast. If you haven't already, put God first and just keep chasing your dreams. Appreciate you guys.